Call to order the Budget and Finance Committee meeting of the City of Keystone Heights. Today is Thursday, May 27th. Ms. Rakowski, will you call roll, please?
Mayor Lake,
Here.
Councilman Tony Brown.
Here.
All right. Wow.
Are there any
Here.
public comment cards?
I have none.
We'll go to agenda item 1, fiscal year 2021-2022 budget review. Ms. Rakowski, would you like to start with the cemetery?
Absolutely. So before I begin, I just wanted to inform the Budget and Finance Committee, and then we'll talk about this again in council. Ms. Shelley Gibbs has announced her retirement. She's going to go and retire with her husband and do gardening and all of that fun stuff and take some trips around the country. Miss Sarah is going to be taking her place, which we anticipated that there would be a change. Sarah has a fantastic background with Department of Revenue and different municipalities around the country as she traveled with her husband who's in the Army. So she will make an excellent fit. And so over the past month, we've been in that transition of bringing her back to the office. This isn't as far as I would have liked, but with training, we'll move forward and do a Budget and Finance Committee meeting next month to go ahead and really talk and look at the budget amendments that will be needed for this year as we move forward into next year's budget.
Okay. When is Shelley's last day?
Pardon?
When is Shelley's last day?
Wednesday.
It's next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, yes.
Okay. Now we're looking at cemetery?
Yes. So everything looks to be on track with cemetery. There's a couple of transfers that we're going to have to do back and forth, and we'll get those done again with the conversations between Shelley and Sarah. But for the Budget and Finance Committee's review and evaluation, cemetery sales have been down this year, which is
I see that.
it's one of those where
As needed.
yeah, it's as needed, and it's not a bad thing that they're down, but for revenue purposes. So we'll look at those adjustments. I wanted to go down to capital improvements, the $31,000 that we have budgeted, and then we've got $501 in expenditures and actuals. We'll be doing a transfer out of general fund. That's part of DRMP's costs that they did for the
Wayfinding?
Yeah, wayfinding plan. I apologize.
Can I
got
ask a
some news on
question?
my family, so. Yes, sir.
The wayfinding, that's just for the streets and stuff?
So the master plan for the cemetery is what DRMP went through, the designation of the gardens, being able to do the wayfinding, navigate through designated parking areas. And then as we take out the cemetery portion of DRMP's contract and move that into cemetery, we'll look at the adjustments, what we can accomplish this year as part of that plan, and then budget accordingly next year.
Okay, while I'm thinking of it, and
Sure.
this might not be the place to ask this question, so forgive me. I was asked the other day about veterans, and I remember several years ago,
Is your microphone on?
I'm just not at it. Okay. I know several years ago, Miss Jones, Miss Carter, and some Girl Scouts or somebody went out there and they were trying to identify the different veterans. That's being, unfortunately, Miss Carter is no longer with us. Miss Jones is not able to go out there. Is that something that we're doing now? And when we have a veteran, we mark where they're at and stuff like that?
So we have a database that locates them. It is very difficult and unfriendly. Public Works is in the process of purchasing and
This is the
putting
report.
in PVC piping that will have a colored top, something similar to what Melrose Cemetery does, so that's easy to identify.
A colored top where the grave
Like
is?
in the PVC, so we'll have a small PVC pipe that will be on the corner of their headstone. That will, that way you can put the flag, or whomever's going out there marking this veterans, whether it be the AMVETS, the Legion, or the volunteers for Race Across America, will
Okay.
be able to more easily identify each veteran.
Yeah, it's very difficult because I've been out there for the ceremonies and been part of trying to
Trying
place
to
the
put
flag.
them, and it's not.
Because a lot of them don't
friendly.
they don't get the foot or the head, whatever the military gives them.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, if you have a headstone, you get a foot marker.
Yes.
So,
Some of them have them and some of them
yeah,
don't.
So
yeah.
We have, in our database, we have those identified, as much information as they give us, so when they put in there that it is a veteran that occupies that site, then we are able to put that in our database and provide that information to whomever is marking. However, we're in hopes by Wreaths Across America have the PVC in there, so it's just a little bit easier to drop
Okay.
flags. You don't have to go through and try to figure out which
Yeah.
section, which lot and plot.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wish we'd have done back when we took control of the cemeteries, started then. Because,
It's
over the,
always hurtful when somebody comes forward and says, my loved one is a veteran and didn't have a flag on
Right.
on
Right.
the
Right.
headstone.
okay, I was just, that got brought up to me the other day, so I said, I'll ask, so.
And while we're on that that topic, if there's those types of conversations that are had to where someone is not marked, then please let us know, because it might not be information that we have in our database, so we can flag
Sure.
that in there and then make sure that we can
Yeah,
correct that.
absolutely.
So with that being said, we're right on track with cemetery. There's going to be some, like I said, some adjustments with cemetery sales, and then moving forward with our master plan. So with that, any questions?
Have we sold any, I call them niches, y'all call them something else? We sold any of those?
We have not sold any from the columbariums yet.
We're on to lakes.
We are on to lakes. So lakes, you don't have it on the report, but we do have just above $33,000 in that account right now. One of the things that you'll find within the next couple of weeks are all of our transfers, so that'll come up to about $43,000, and we still have probably about $700 worth of lake maintenance that we pay Southern Vegetation throughout the next fiscal year, or the end of this fiscal year.
Yeah, it's well worth every penny.
I will say, being down there last night, the lake looks good. I mean, it's just cleared out. I don't know how that path got there, but I'm happy it's there. I saw a guy in the boat fishing. There was people down at the beach fishing, and people in the water swimming. I mean, it's nice that we can keep
Using
that.
the lake.
Use the lake. So.
With that being said, then this will be a good time to have the conversation. We have exhausted our permit to its fullest. We cannot extend out any more clearing on the lake. We have had conversations with other property owners along the lake bed that they can pull permits as well, and that's where you see the larger area of vegetation being cleared. The St. John's River Water Management District has an algorithm of how much you can clear up to open water. So as you have conversations of, we need to clear out, constituents are coming and talking about clearing out the lake beds, that's the best way that we can manage that, is to encourage permits. And it's really going to be private property owners now. We've exhausted everything that we can
Okay.
do.
So the ones going, like, here's the beach and everybody this way, they can,
There's permits
do
that
they
can be.
piggyback on us, or do they have,
No,
they get their own?
they pull their own permit, and so it's 50 feet up to open water, 50%, whichever's less, an area, square footage of how much you can clear vegetation
Wow.
wise. And so Mr. Fitz with Southern Vegetation, he is an expert on that, he understands that, and I don't want to say it's minimal, that's not the correct term, but we pay probably about $250 a quarter or so to keep our vegetation cleared out.
That's not bad.
Not at all. So
Do you have any of his business cards? Can you?
I do not have any of his business cards. That's just who we use. I know that there's a couple others that are in town. I met one last night who's brand new to the area, and so there's resources available of clearing out lake vegetation.
Okay.
Any questions on lakes?
Are we gonna continue to put that, was it
The
$10,000
$10,000 in?
for this budget year?
So we have it allocated out of general fund and going into lakes for this budget year. You'll see that by
Okay.
your July statements.
Okay.
And then the conversation was that the city will continue to put the $10,000 and keep it at a max of around 50,000 We didn't one year because of COVID.
Yeah. So, and let me just restate what I think I heard you say.
Sure.
Currently, this fund is at 33,000, and when we put the 10,000 in, it'll be at 43,000.
Correct, and we've got just shy of $1,000 worth of maintenance left on this fiscal year, so we'll end the year right about 42.
That's cool. All right, CIP.
CIP, so this is one of the newer budgets in QuickBooks that we have this fiscal year as we moved with Brad and Rebecca of separating it in a better transition in our QuickBooks. We're right on target to get our state income of $164,000. Everything looks good. I just want to bring your attention down to the two items that are highlighted. This is one budget that I was able to project out. We had the $10,000 for the pickleball court and lighting. That was a carryover from last year because it fell on the cusp, and so a portion of that ended up in this fiscal year. And then the beach renovations and parking came out to about $208,000. You see up top that we made the $61,000 contribution from cashing in one of our CDs, and then we'll bring itemized list text to the next budget and finance meeting. But we're doing better than the conversations had at the beginning of this fiscal year with CIP as far as our funding for the beach and different planning projects.
The theme park pickleball,
Uh-huh.
is that, y'all still think of this park being the theme park?
Well, so they were combined into and it's the theme park. It's not a FERDAP grant that needs to go away. The pickleball court that was over in Sunrise.
Okay. Okay.
We're looking at the CRA.
CRA. We have not made the transfers yet of the $27,000, and then we're anticipating our projections of $60,000. Actually, I believe that's going to be more with the increase in ad valorem of roughly about $82,000.
Wow.
We should be seeing that within this next month. Everything else is on track. We had some concerns with some of the parades as deputy costs have increased. It's after having conversations with the run and the 4th of July parade, costs this year are not going to be impacted because we do allocate $1,500 for each parade or each road closure. Next year, though, next fiscal year, we'll have to look at increasing that to about $1,800 as opposed to $1,500.
Wow.
They're coming in just under $1,500 this year on both parades because it's not a holiday. They're doing it on that Saturday. So it's just something to be mindful of as we move forward with it.
Okay.
We've paid our 4th of July fireworks, and Mr. Hall is meeting with Mr. Getzman they're under new contract for the fireworks, and so we'll get that set up. Everything else looks good. You can see seasonal decorations and banners. We do have our new flag banners that are on.
Awesome.
They do.
I
So I
mean, one
can't
day
put
it was
them up.
blue and the Keystone blue, and then I come in yesterday and it's the honoring, and that looks sharp.
Yeah, it does.
So out of the seasonal decorations and banners, we do have 3 banners that are in rotation. We have our holiday season, we have our flags honoring our soldiers, our veterans, and then we also have our Welcome to Keystone Heights. So you will have a continuous banner year-round,
That
which
looks
is
good.
great.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then we have exhausted the rest of that with additional Christmas decorations. Went with the greenery with the white lights to place on the fencing, just to continue on our theme.
Nice.
So very exciting for what Christmas will look like this year. And just a side note, good news is Miss Gibbs has made herself available for decorating.
Oh, good.
So
'cause
that-
the
that-
pictures look fantastic.
Yeah,
in
that
the
will
front.
be her contribution to the city after retirement.
There you go. Question for you: why is the Edison lights? Why are they not on?
I'll check with Kenny on that. They should be on. They should be coming on at 9 and then staying on until 11 or 12.
They haven't been on lately.
I'll double check with that.
Some darn squirrels.
Well, they're on a timer.
Well,
Like
they're on a
chewing their
timer.
wires.
One of the GIFs are up. GIF is up in the tree because we keep it down low and then we end up with vandalism. So that
Sensor,
The
has
JFI?
GF. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Is up so that might be
Those
tripped.
pop, you ain't got no juice.
what is it?
It pops,
When
just
it
like
pops,
you have
you
in your
can't-
house,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
in your restroom.
Like
anything
by the
about-
water,
So-
Yep.
water faucet?
Yeah, I'll send them up to check on that.
Yep.
Are there any questions for CRA?
See, all right, the second page, I just take a quick glance. So the $50,000 grant contribution expenses, that's the county money? On the second page, first item?
Yes. So that's under expenses, so grant contributions, that's going to be, not the $46,000 that we had with the trailhead, but the $50,000 for moving forward with any grants that we could receive for streetscapes, things of that nature. One of the things I was gonna talk about in general fund, but I'll talk about it now, is there's a DEO grant that's available for master planning and economic development planning. And so our parks master plan will qualify under ecotourism.
Oh, good.
So I'm in the process of working with DRMP to navigate through that application. You'll see that on the June agenda.
Okay.
It's upwards of $40,000, and that one is not a matching grant.
Oh, excellent.
Nice.
But it's a necessity to get any of the other grants is to get that plan taking place.
Yeah.
So
Cool. And then we haven't spent on benches or trash cans or anything like that yet.
So those are some things that we're going to be doing, some transfers that are out of general fund into CRA, because when we have replaced all of our trash cans that are down there. They're just like everything else on back order. Once those come in, then we'll take payments on those, but we've exhausted our benches and trash can budget. We're
Okay.
just waiting for some items to come in to take delivery on them.
And then you spent $364 on the pavilion?
That was for additional lighting and whatnot that came out. So it was not allocated. It wasn't necessarily anticipated under that line item. And so again, like I said, as we've cleaned up our QuickBooks, we'll go through and itemize or go through line by line and put everything back in the correct spot. You're gonna see the same numbers just presented differently
Okay.
in the next meeting.
And the $21,000 for the streetscape, is that DRMP?
Yes. That's part of their planning.
And what was the $22,000 in other types of expenses?
So that's adding on, if you look up, that's
Oh, that's the addition.
yeah, that's the
Never mind.
total of the 21 plus
Yeah.
the pavilion and
Okay, we're back on general fund.
all right, general fund, you'll see that our property taxes were right at the annual budgeted amount, so that's going to increase, probably exceed what we've budgeted, which is not a bad thing at all, and we anticipate that. Everything else, as far as income goes, we are on track to receive all of our fundings with exception of just small line items like mobile home licensings and whatnot. There's nothing big that's affecting our income. You'll see the business tax is low because we get a lot of that come August, September prior to the close of this fiscal year. We'll see that actually increase and probably exceed the budgeted amount due to the increased number of businesses we've had. There's a couple of things that'll be cleaned up if you look down at the Northeast Florida League of Cities, down towards the bottom part of your page. And then the extravaganza, we're going to combine all those. We do have a separate line item, or we will be creating a separate line item for our events. Any of the events that the city puts on does not cost taxpayers dollars. We have a fee for booths, and then that covers the cost of that event. So that way it's not being taken out of any taxes that we're collecting anywhere else. And so we'll see that better presented
Okay.
in the budget.
What kind of event is that?
I'm sorry?
This one you just said?
The extravaganza?
Yeah, that one.
The extravaganza event was your Christmas event.
Or what?
The
Christmas.
Christmas event.
Okay.
And then while we're on events, we do have a sponsor for a summertime movie. We look at probably the end of June, I believe, that we'll be playing a movie down at the park, and DRMP is going to sponsor the
Oh,
cost
nice.
of that.
Is that going to be an event application?
It's going to be a city event. The city's putting it on. They're just sponsoring the movie. So it wouldn't be an event application. It would just be something that the city's taking on, and then we'll bring you that information come the June agenda.
Yeah. I was going to ask, could we at least run that by, those city events by city council to get city council input?
Sure.
Because we may be able to help generate additional items or additional, I don't know. We got some pretty creative people up here.
Do we have to still, are they paying for the license? Because I remember back when we did,
So that's again, with the city not utilizing taxpayer dollars to put on those events, the DRMP is sponsoring the movie by paying for the license. License per movie to show publicly to make
Yeah.
it legal
ridiculous,
is about $500.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, the first year that we showed a movie down at the beach, we were actually, somebody, it was done anonymously, but we were turned in and we had to show proof of license. It
Oh,
would have
wow.
been like a $5,000 fine had we had not had that license to show it.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things
Yeah.
that you don't know.
Technicality.
Yeah.
can we go back to the one, the Northeast Florida League?
Yes.
What is that, 1684?
So the 1684 is money that came in from sponsors and then
Okay.
the way the Florida League of Cities is set up now is the city takes care of all of the costs, and then we get the income back from ticket sales,
Right.
individuals coming in.
Okay.
It's
Ano-
done a little differently than what it has been in the past years.
Another one over the years, we've kind of let it slide, is that traffic violation. Because it's my understanding, and it might have changed, any tickets written inside the city limits, we don't get much, but we do get some. We don't do that no more?
That is something that we looked into at the beginning of this year. It's a situation similar to what the parades were several years ago, to where the city of Keystone Heights wasn't paying for the guard, or not the guards, the police that were coming down and doing our parades. And it was just one of those things that was never caught up to current policy. For years, the municipalities do not get a cut of the traffic violations that come in. And Keystone Heights has always gotten just a small kickback.
Yeah, it's not much.
Whenever we asked, and it kind of pushed the issue, they went through their policies and came back with the policy that says, no, we don't get that. It's no longer city resources that are being used. It's all of that changed once the police, the sheriff's office left City Hall.
So they don't take into consideration that they can use our cameras and stuff to solve crimes?
Well, that was in partnership with them, and that's not utilized for traffic violations. So anything that they do for vandalism and such like that, we recover 100% of the costs, any judgments that are placed on there.
Okay.
So. The next page, there's just a couple of things that we're gonna have to work out. I don't think that it's necessarily on this page. In payrolls, all of the payrolls, once we navigate it through QuickBooks, were combined. All of council payrolls were combined with staff payrolls, so we'll have to separate that out. The numbers aren't changing. It doesn't change the bottom line. It just changed how they're presented within the budget. Everything else looks to be right on track. We're being fiscally responsible with some of our line items. If you look under materials and supplies for parks and recreation, we're below budget. Parks electricity went up due to additional lighting. Water, we're right on track. Payroll for parks, we're doing good. We're pretty much right on track with all of our expenditures. There's nothing that's really out of the ordinary.
The planner fees, what were we thinking about there when we allocated 20,000?
That goes more towards the 37 acres as far as a large PUD, bringing in a planner from DRMP's side on how that meets within our master plan as to where it is a true PUD with, well, it was proposed at the beginning of the fiscal year as a true PUD with mixed zonings, anywhere from commercial to residential, and so those fees would cover that.
Is that the one on that Joe's
Yes.
got?
And then any additional starting of master plans that was outside of parks and recreation, economic plans and whatnot. We're just kind of one bite at a time, going at the elephant, nipping away at that. So we wanted to make sure that we had fees in there when we got to the point of doing maybe a downtown master plan or a roadway master plan, things of that nature.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? And I'm just asking, when I was on the Northeast Florida Planning Council, and I understand Clay County's back into that. So back then, different counties could use the planners there.
Yes.
Would that be more cost efficient for us to use them than hire a private?
There's pros and cons to that as far as cost efficient. I haven't looked into that because we haven't gotten into a whole bunch of
Okay.
planning with it. Pros is that you're dealing with the regional planning council. Cons are we work with an engineer who's a full service engineer, has planners that are elbow deep into our cities, understands our
Right.
wants, needs, desires. So it's definitely something that you can get exactly what you're looking for versus maybe spending a couple $1,000s left, and we can evaluate that as the time comes.
Okay. And this is off, but you said planning. Have we heard from Popeyes?
Yes, actually we have. They have just extended their contract. They were working on a different project and have come back to this project in the city of Keystone Heights. Mr. Jarrett was in contact with Kenny. They're planning on submitting probably August for their review of we're still talking about that third entrance exit off of the small roadway that leads
Yeah.
to commercial.
Okay.
So
And then also, I saw Country Meadows was here the other day. How did that go?
So planning and zoning recommended approval of the planned unit development with the 55 lots. They denied the variance with asking for a variance against from the tree mitigation, and then they approved the burning variance with stipulations that they received their permit from forestry on a daily basis and utilized the special equipment that was stated, the air curtain. As I explained to planning and zoning, the code was written prior to that technology being in place, and so that was one that, utilizing that technology may be better for the area. The tree mitigation, since the denial of that variance, Country Meadows has come back with a tree mitigation plan that is currently being reviewed by GRMP. And then you'll have first hearing of the PUD at your June 6th meeting. As we're talking about this, you have a planned unit development that's being proposed without a tree mitigation plan. So we'll talk through the process, and Mr. Commando will talk better to that process of being able to approve
Something before something else happens.
exactly, being able to approve a PUD without tree mitigation in place. So, but overall, planning and zoning recommended approval of the 55 homes for council to take into consideration, and then denied their tree variance.
And I know this is budget and finance, but while we're talking about it, I rode by there yesterday real slow, and there's ribbons around a bunch of trees.
Mhm.
Do you know if those are the trees they're wanting to cut out or are staying? I mean, are we at that?
Neither. I believe that those are the trees that are staying. Those are the trees that they counted, and so we received their tree survey, which just the facts. They counted the trees that they were saving.
So, but they didn't inventory the entire lot of trees?
That's correct. And
Well,
so
that's-
that was part of the conversations that they had with planning and zoning, is that it would not be, they would not be able to do it from a cost standpoint. And so they were asking for a variance from the entire code as opposed to giving a little bit. Once that once that request was denied, they came back with a tree plan amending their variance, amending their request.
So how did it change?
They were able to, through an algorithm, calculate how many trees through banding. So they had 3 bands. They've got the band that's facing Paradise, the band that's on the Clay Electric and the CCUA right away, and then a band in the middle of the trees that they're preserving, that they're saving. And they were able to count those and use that banding to create a concept of how many trees are on the property, as opposed to going through and physically counting every tree, which is something that's done often with larger properties, because it is time consuming and not very cost effective to go and count every tree, but you get a general idea. With that, then they were able to calculate how many trees they would be removing versus how many trees they're physically mitigating for, they're planting to replace, because each property they're proposing 2 new trees at a 4-inch DBH.
Right.
And then they've come up with a number to pay into a tree mitigation fund, which could potentially help for the streetscape program, landscaping with the cemetery, any kind of landscaping that we do throughout our master parks plan, our parks master plan. Those numbers are being reviewed by the professionals, by GRMP. Probably will not have them in time for the June agenda, because we just received that information this past Monday.
Yeah. And then I had a last question. Is there any, did planning and zoning ask any questions, additional questions? I watched the meeting. I missed the first part of it, but I saw the second half of the planning and zoning meeting. And I'm wondering if they talked to that sinkhole and doing any kind of gradient radar underground to see if there's any other pockets of whatever, because there's a lot of sinkholes around here.
So their geotech survey, the first geotech survey that Country Meadows presented to the city, stated that there were sinkholes on the property and then sinkholes in an area surrounding the property. They went out of radius. Country Meadows did not supply the revised geotech report prior to planning and zoning that stated that it wasn't an active sinkhole anymore, that it has been mitigated, has been filled in. They've since sent that over to us. GRMP is also evaluating that. They're going through some back and forth on language interpretation,
Yeah.
and it's in Rich's hand at the moment.
Okay.
So yes, to answer, that was a very long answer to say yes, they did answer that, or they did ask that, and we're still navigating through that answer.
Okay. Because, Tony, you've been around here a long time. You've heard the stories about that sinkhole, and
I have never heard any story about a sinkhole on that piece of property. Honestly, when I heard about it, I was amazed. But
Have
it
you
kinda
walked the
lines-
property?
No.
you can go in there and look at it. I mean, it's straight from the stop sign. If you turn the corner on Sunrise and you park,
Where the
That's it.
opening is?
yeah, you'll just walk straight back into it, and you can see that there's 3-foot diameter trees growing out of a depression.
Huh.
So the geotech is available online through the planning and zoning packet. If you want to read through that, all of the information that they presented to staff is in that packet, and then we're navigating through the additional information we got Monday after the meeting.
So I plan to drive up to McClenny this afternoon, and I want to look at Century's Homes product. They're building homes, about 20 homes up in McClenny, and they also have another subdivision they're working on in
Live Oak.
Willaca.
And they got one in Live Oak too.
So the one in Willaca is, I believe, are concrete block homes.
Yes, different
Yeah,
material.
It's a different structure. There's one in Live Oak that is a larger version of what they're presenting here, but the same
The house is
homes.
larger, the floor
No,
plan?
no, no, the area is larger. But I believe that the homes are similar, if not the exact, of what they're presenting for here. And then in McClenny as well, they have.
And is the one in Live Oak, is that brick, I mean, is that stick building or?
It's
is-
stick built, it's
Stick.
not concrete block.
Okay.
I'm going there Tuesday on business, so I'm just gonna
There's,
slide in there.
I've not been to the one in Live Oak, I've heard about it. So I know that,
Tony, is McClenny or Live Oak closer?
McClenny.
McClenny's closer?
Yeah, because you can go up 301, and right when you get into Maxville, you can go to the left. and
Yeah.
Come around
Yeah,
out that way.
okay. I'm sorry, I got us
no,
totally off track.
absolutely.
But, you know,
That's the fun part of not having it being a committee and not a council.
Council.
Yeah.
so we're on page 2.
We're on page 2. Like I said, there's nothing that is a huge concern of fluctuation. The numbers are all going to be the same. It's just going to be a matter of different presentations. Everything else seems to be on track. We haven't had any huge discrepancies or amendments between what we anticipated and the year to date.
How are we with equipment for public works in the way of lawnmowers and vehicles? We're pretty set on that. Probably lawnmowers, we're always, every other year or so, we're having to buy lawnmowers because
Lawnmowers we replace on probably an every other year basis. They are on a rotation to where we do end up picking up a new zero turn, replacing, because we use them on
Yeah.
a continuous basis. Had a conversation with our public works director this morning. It's one that it's just going to be a need sooner rather than later. Is going to be a bucket truck.
Is a
Bucket truck.
bucket
Poor Dale got stuck in the air.
Oh, when he's putting up the Memorial Day?
Putting up the banners. Got him down, took the bucket truck over to Clay Electric for evaluation. It's another $1,000 part. We were fortunate to go borrow the airport's bucket truck and finish our banners, but that bucket truck, it's a matter of we're going to have a mechanic look at it and keep putting Band-Aids on it, or really just look at biting the bullet in the next couple of years.
How much are they? Shock us.
Pardon?
Shock us.
Probably, you can get a used one that's been through the ringer with Clay Electric for $30,000-$40,000.
That's not as bad as I thought. I thought you were going to give a
I mean,
like a
that's-
$100,000 number.
To
you
get,
buy a new one,
yeah.
you're gonna probably,
So
Do they depreciate really fast?
depending on the use of them. Now, I mean, you get one from Clay Electric that has been well maintained. Ours came from Clay Electric. It was well maintained. It lasted us for, I don't know, probably that was purchased before I got here 10
Yeah.
years ago. And so, we've milked that thing to death.
I don't own, but I would prefer sticking with what we've been doing.
Oh, yeah. And
So-
we'll start having those conversations. Like I said, it was just one of those to where we keep putting the $1,500 into the bucket truck. When someone gets stuck in the air, it's really time to start
Yeah.
looking for.
All right.
And then that one we have would be not auction, but what we do. Silent bid kind of thing, get rid of it.
Ours?
Yeah.
Well, we would end up surplusing it and
That's
then
what I was,
looking at
yeah.
if the airport can make one out of two because theirs is not in the best of shape either, or it might be something that's better. Ours has a larger reach than theirs, so we can look at conversations like that. But I anticipate that probably not this coming fiscal year, but the one after that is when we'll plan on doing it. We don't use it often, and then we can also rely on the airports for what we need to get done.
Okay. Payroll looks pretty much the same.
Payroll's pretty much the same. Like I said, you'll see on the next page, I believe that the payroll for council has not been taken out of that line item. It's been through paychecks been taken out of the staff payroll. So the numbers are still there. It's just going to be presented differently. Once we had to get through all of our line items to make sure that QuickBooks had what we needed, and then now we'll do the transfer from line item to line item.
Do we put any money in the budget this year to do a road? Are we?
For a
from our-
road?
Yeah, for our roadways?
We didn't plan any money for the roadway. We took a break on roads and then just went into planning and then utilized CIP to finish our beach.
Okay.
Is there a specific road that you have?
So I was gonna go back to Southeast Nelson's Point,
Okay.
because we had delayed doing anything about Southeast Nelson's Point because we were waiting for DOT to finish the
The apron.
So now that the apron's done, I didn't know if we were gonna take a look at that, because it seemed to me that was one of the highest roads on our windshield that needed repair.
And then we will also be looking within the next, by the end of this fiscal year, a new windshield done with robotics with the AI technology.
Okay, and did we already purchase that? Have you already purchased that?
Yes. Yep. And so we've been, Public Works has been mapping it out, sending the footage over to robotics for analyzing. They're putting that together. We had some GIS, Keystone Heights and GIS tracking is not the best. They had us cruising through lakes and stuff like that.
Like a drone?
Yeah, kind of. So after all that's worked out, robotics is analyzing the data, and then we'll get that over to DRMP for their final review and placement.
Okay, so that means through that process, you're gonna update the windshield? And
We'll have a completely new windshield. And then with that, the other half of robotics was Agile Mapper, which will assess the right-of-way portion of it, not just the roadway, but the right-of-way as well.
Okay.
So if there's no more questions on page 3, going to page 4, the only thing that you'll really, take notice on is that safety and security will do a budget amendment, and it's about halfway down through the page, line item 541375.
Is that for cameras and stuff?
That's for cameras, security cameras, our alarms, things like that. So we did add some cameras down at the beach. We do have, we added some hardware into our server room for better connectivity with the sheriff's office. They have eyes on all of our cameras. We have a greater visibility on our parks now. I'll tell you it's working, because when I pull it up, there were some kids that were swinging on our poles. And I walked down there and just introduced myself and had Deputy Santiago on the phone and made sure that they were aware that I saw what they were doing. They needed to stop trying to climb up on the roof, and Deputy Santiago talked to them over the phone, and we haven't had those problems anymore. So, just
You're right, eyes in the sky just make all the difference.
and the confronting of, we see it,
Yeah.
so stop before you cause trouble.
Yeah.
And they did.
Perfect.
So transitioning, segueing off, we have the completion of our restrooms. We do have the vandalism resistant restrooms are in place. All of our fixtures are down there now. The stainless steel, I had a couple individuals came up to me and they're like, it looks like a prison in there. Well, that's where we got them from.
Deter them from
So-
going to prison.
But Public Works is very pleased because we do take the paper products off of it, and they're able to just go in there and pressure wash the entire thing without being
Oh,
able
really?
to damage. It's fantastic.
That's fantastic.
So it's a good Monday morning practice to go in there and just from top to bottom, 5 minutes, clean it out.
Wow, that's great.
Above your safety, security, emergency supplies what is that for?
So that's when we have hurricane preparedness,
Okay.
food products, rain gear,
But then
things like that.
that runs me into where do we have budgeted for anything like that? Would it be down in materials and supplies? Because my understanding, we are possibly going to have a very active
Yes, we are.
hurricane season.
So we keep a good amount of supplies on hand, rain gear, things like that, and that's just on a daily basis. We don't need a hurricane to need a poncho,
Right,
if you will.
right.
And then our equipment, the emergency supplies, the $150 is usually used for things to keep our team hydrated, food if there's storms overnight that, when we have a large storm coming, we try to make sure that we have a team in place that we can work from the inside out. That way, in case something happens, we're not trying to get people in. We've already got people in that we can deploy outwards and to help our residents. So that's the $150 is just really for the comfort needs of those situations.
Sure. And we haven't talked about it in a while, and I know that you still have half a year. We were going to use some of our ARP money to continue the Wi-Fi zone up Southeast North Boulevard. Do you anticipate when that might happen?
So I'm in conversations about the best way to deploy that. We're actually Smart North Florida, who we worked with Robotics, has a vision in place of creating a city network.
City network?
Yes, and
Okay.
so it'll be something that we're looking at talking with the airport of creating a network for all of our equipment, and then be able to turn some of those on, like the downtown core, for public use as well. So there's some creative thinking and trying to figure out the best way to keep up with technology, the best way we can to do that.
Okay. I think DRMP had talked about pulling fiber downtown?
It's a possibility, and so that's part of the streetscape plan conversations with FDOT, because it is in there right away.
Right.
So those are all one conversation leads to another, and it's all right there in the mixing pot. None of them have left, or been off to the side. It's just a matter of trying to figure out the best way that we can spend our dollars to do so.
Okay. So we're on to page 5?
All right, on to page 5. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. We're going to be completing the transfers that you'll see, like the $10,000 for lakes towards the top of the page, and the $27,000 for the community redevelopment area. Going down, you'll see that we have $234,000 spent out of ARPA, and then this is part that will be cleaned up now that we've got QuickBooks taking care of the $350,000 what was budgeted. It's actually our this fiscal year's installment, or half, was about $367,000, just a little bit north of that $350,000 budgeted item.
Wow.
And then we're expecting another one here come probably September, October.
The next installment of ARPA?
Yes, that will be our second installment of ARPA.
And how much do you anticipate?
The same, about $367,000.
Wow. Does that have to be used like at the beach projects and stuff like that, or?
There's specific requirements on how ARPA funding can be used. This time around, we utilized it for the ADA compliant restrooms onto our community center, onto our pavilion, and then ecotourism, ADA compliant restrooms down at our beach, and then also the water project, the feasibility study at the airport. We can look at
That was completed, correct?
That is not completed, not yet. And so they're still probably about 60 days out from completion on that.
So I'm just going to jump out and say, can any of that be used on the trailhead?
On the trailhead?
Yeah, for like tourism or anything like that? Is that, I mean,
Like phase 2?
Not new construction.
So it would be hardening of existing structures and that kind of
Yes.
thing?
Yes, so, the addition of ADA compliant restroom into a what would be used as a food distribution
Yeah.
center, renovating our current restrooms that we utilize for our ecotourism to ADA compliant, those qualified because it was not an addition of structures. So these ARPA dollars, we look at the possibility of utilizing a municipal network, which is going to be, it'll be a pretty substantial cost to that. And then there are dollars available as well if we install that kind of technology in our system in our municipality, that we can collect some as well. Waterway, the stormwater resiliency, things like that, that's also very attractive within the ARPA funding.
Okay. All those are good projects.
So those are, and the good news is we don't have to, it's not like CARES, we don't have to spend it next year. So there was some projects that we were really looking at finishing that beach. The beach is now done as far as any funding, ARPA or CARES funding that we can use. We can sit back and really plan the best use for the next $350,000 and how to maximize that, leverage some additional funding with it.
Okay. All right.
Can I just ask a dumb question? Could any of that, and I think you just explained it, but I'm gonna ask anyhow, is there any way any of that money could be, for infrastructure at the intersection with that building that sits there and?
So you're talking about the Chinese restaurant?
Yes. I mean, I do a lot of travel, and I go through towns that look good, and I go through towns that don't look so good. Our town looks spectacular, looks good, looks great. But then you got this one thing, and if they're watching whatever they're watching right now, I really don't care. That is an eyesore to our city. And whether they come down on the price so somebody can do something with it.
Is it still for sale at the same price?
It's just, there's some neighboring towns that I go through, and I can't believe, the way they look. And honestly, I think everything downtown looks good except that one building, and it's been vacant for years. And you really can't do anything with it.
It's private property.
And, but if there's any kind of funds that we can find to get that and get it tore down or do whatever to it.
Control the corner.
Yes, ma'am.
We have not found funding yet, so to answer directly,
I'm sorry,
your
it's
question,
just a thorn
ARPA
in my.
funds cannot be used for that. I have had conversations with the county, I've had conversations with GRMP of how do we collect private property? Are there funding available to collect, we can purchase anything that we want to purchase, but is there funding available to purchase private property? We have not found that. So a short answer to your direct question is, can the ARPA funding be used for that? No, it cannot.
So Tony, the real trick is to find someone who cares enough about this town to purchase it and donate it to us.
Al's not here no more.
Al's not here.
So, but with that being said, that's all the budgets, and we'll present again next month with QuickBooks cleaned up and then amendments for this fiscal year.
Okay.
I mean, you go to, one more thing, you go to High Springs, and there's this little bitty building right in the middle of the intersection. And it looks good. It's a real estate office. And, something like that would be, if it would just somebody buy it
Yeah.
and clean it up, take care of it. So,
Well, it is, from my understanding, my prior conversations with Ms. Rakowski is, even if somebody buys it and intends to use it, there's not a whole lot they can do because the zoning now does not help
Exactly.
them. So they're basically zoned out of a business. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct. So it's a non-conforming situation, and it's been it's been vacant for too long, that it would have to go into a change in use, which means the entire code is put into effect. The amount of variances that one would have to get is great.
So basically, it could be a kiosk of some size.
So there's been conversations with that, but is there anything else as far as the budget and finance standpoint?
No. Do you have anything else for the budget?
Did we go through all the pay? Yeah,
We
we
did.
did. How about that? Okay, no, ma'am. I think we've had a darn good meeting. We've gotten off track, chased some rabbits, but
Conversations to be had.
conversations.
All right, seeing nothing,